Hello everyone, welcome to Android Geeks. In the last episode, we learned about Android basics and we looked into activities and their life cycles. In this video, we will be looking into fragments and looking into the life cycle of a fragment in detail. So let's look at fragments and see how to create a fragment and attach it to an activity. So let's go here and create a new fragment. So right click, new, uh, activity and fragment. So an activity can also be created like this, but let's create a fragment now. So there is the Android Studio gives different templates for fragments. Let's choose a blank fragment. So let's name it test fragment. So if you click the create layout XML, it will Android Studio itself will create a new layout for the fragment. So if you click include fragment factory methods, it will create factory methods to include the fragment. Include interface callbacks. It will Android Studio itself will create some callbacks. Let's keep them like that. We'll come to them in detail. Here is, as you can see, Android Studio has created a new fragment class and it's syncing. So it looks like a lot of code, but most of them are boilerplate. We'll go through them one by one. So not just the just fragment, it will have also created a layout file. So the Android Studio has created a layout also, but there is some error. Let's check if the string is defined. Okay, looks like it is fixed. So let's look at the code that is generated by Android Studio. So as you can see, the name of the class is test fragment, same as the name of the file, and it extends the fragment class from the Android framework. So if you look at here, it's the support version 4 of fragment. Then there are some variables defined here. Then there is the constructor of the fragment. An empty constructor is always required for a fragment for some reasons that will come to later. Then there is a listener. So let's remove all this unwanted code as for now. So this is a fragment listener which is defined here. So this is an interface listener that is used to listen to events from the fragment. We'll come to that later in a future video. Let's delete this for now. Let's keep the factory method, but let's remove the parameters. We don't need parameters right now. These parameters are useful if you want to like pass any data from the activity to the fragment. Okay, so this is a bare minimum code that is required for a fragment. So let's see what are the functions here. So as you see, as we have seen before, the name of the class is test fragment. Then there is a empty constructor for the fragment. Then there is a static function to get an instance of a fragment, which just takes a parameter, then creates a fragment, then creates a bundle, puts the parameter into the bundle and set the bundle to the fragment and returns the fragment. We'll come to this later. Next, there are lifecycle functions like onCreate, onCreateView, onAttach, and onDetach. So these are the basic lifecycle functions of a fragment. Let's look at the complete lifecycle of a fragment. So as you can see here, like activity, fragment also has a life cycle, but you can see it is bit more complex than an activity. So let's look at it one by one. So this is a point where a fragment is added to an activity, then immediately on attach will be called, then on create will be called, then on create view will be called. This is the point where we will attach a layout to the fragment. Then activity created will be called. This is a callback from the activity saying that the activity has been created since the fragment has been like viewed. Then on start will be called and on resume will be called. At this point the fragment is live and visible to the user. Then once we like start detaching or removing the fragment from the activity, it will go through, or the activity itself is going on in background, it will go through on pause, on stop, on destroy view like on create view, and on destroy, which is corresponding to on create, and on detach, which is corresponding to on attach. So this is the entire like life cycle of a fragment, but there is also some connections from the activity. So let's look at it. So let's say there is an activity and the activity is hosting a fragment, and once the activity is getting started, the activity will go through on create and on start, at which point the fragment will be attached, and before on start is called, the on attach, on create and on create view of the fragment will be called, and at this point the activity is created and on activity created will be called, and then on start of the activity will be called, and which will then call the on start of the fragment. Then on resume of the activity will be called, which will then call the on resume of the fragment. Then it goes through, and when the activity is going in background, on pause of the activity will be called, then on pause of the fragment will be called, then on stop in the activity will be called, and on stop in the fragment will be called. Then on destroy, when on destroy of the activity is called, then it will start detaching, destroying the view, then destroy the fragment and detach the um, fragment from the activity. So this is the entire life cycle of fragment and how it is related to activity. So let's go to the code and create some logs in the code. First let's create a tag. Let's write it everywhere. Logd is a shortcut to create a logging method. On create view, on attach. It's useful to have this image handy so you can refer back and forth. I'll add a link to this image in the description of this video. Okay, as you can see, we have written all the lifecycle callbacks for the fragment, but still we need to attach the fragment to an activity. So let's see how to do that. So let's go to our main activity and open our layout, and here let's add a frame layout. Let's give it match parent, and let's give it an ID as a frame, as fragment container. So let's go to the activity and create it, frame layout. Let's define it outside. We have to use the function find view by id to get a reference to the view items, and here we give the id that we defined before, fragment container. So usually before we also used to explicitly cast the views, but with the new version of find view by id it is not needed anymore. Let's remove that. So right now we have got a reference to the container. Let's just use the support fragment manager to attach the fragment to the container. So let's use call the function get support fragment manager. So this is a function that is defined in app combat activity. Get support fragment manager is a function defined in activity. So we have to call this function like first we have to get the fragment manager, then we have to uh, begin a transaction dot, then we have to add a fragment to the container, right? So there are multiple functions like add, remove, replace. Let's use replace. And for replace there are some parameters that we have to give, which is the id of the container and the fragment that we want to attach, and a tag for the fragment. So let's use that. So id of the container is r dot id dot fragment container, and the fragment is test fragment dot get instance dot new instance. The parameter, let's give it as test, and the tag will give us test fragment. And once it is done, we have to like finish the transaction with a commit. So this will uh, create an activity and attach a fragment to the activity. So this is unnecessary. We can remove the fragment container. So let's run this and see what happens. So I have made some changes here. First of all, I have made the tag as Android basics for both the classes for the test fragment and main activity, so that we can see everything with the same tag. Let's close these files. And also I have changed the logs. Before it used to be below the super. Now I have moved it to above super for all the functions, because we want to see the uh, lifecycle calls in the correct order. If you put it below super, the super on start will be called first, and only then the log will be called. So let's run this and see what happens. So as you can see, the fragment has been attached. Let's put a new tag, Android basics. Okay, here you can see the activity was created and on create was called, at which point in the activity we create the fragment and attach it to the container. And you can see the new instance of the fragment is called on start of the activity. Then the on start of the activity gets called, and on attach of the fragment is called since the fragment gets started to get attached. Then on create of the fragment is called on create view, and the view of the fragment is inflated. Then activity created gets called. Then on start the fragment is called, on resume of activity is called, on resume fragment is called. Let's see what happens when the activity goes home. Let's click home. So here on pause of the activity is called first, then on pause of fragment, then on stop in activity, then on stop in fragment. Let's bring the activity forward. Let's clear the bucket. So here again activity is started, then the fragment is started, then activity is resumed, and the fragment is resumed. Now everything is in foreground. Now let's just click back and see what happens. Okay, so here as you can see, the activity is going out of visibility, fragment is also went invisible, activity is going background, fragment is in background, activity got killed, uh, the fragment view got destroyed, fragment got destroyed, and then the fragment got detached. So this is the entire life cycle of activity and fragment and how they are interrelated with each other. So that's it for this video. In this video, we learned about fragments and the life cycle of a fragment in detail. I would also like to give a shout out to James Oki for subscribing to our channel. Thanks a lot, James. In the next video, we will be looking more into layouts, especially how to use a relative layout, a frame layout, and a linear layout to make beautiful and complex UIs. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a great day.